Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
And joining me now in studio is Victoria Solomon, a lawyer, our legal coordinator for the FightTheFines.com project. Victoria, it's great to see you. Thank you for being here today. I thought we would give our viewers an update on how the whole project is going. You told me just before we turned the cameras on that we have 1,834 cases that we've dealt with, of which almost 100 have been resolved, most of which were withdrawn by prosecutors just when we lawyered up. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we've had a tremendous success, I think, in this project to date, and we continue to fight.
Well, you're on staff, and we have two paralegals who are working full-time. In addition to you and the two paralegals, we have lawyers across the country now. This started out just a few places, but this is like a national law firm.
Yes, we've spread out coast to coast, and we have lawyers all over Canada, and it's not only one lawyer, it's law firms. So there are multiple lawyers, there are paralegals, there is staff that are working tirelessly for our clients literally around the clock.
Yeah, I mean, we have the website, and I see when people fill out the form, I get a little ping, and I just take a glance. The first thing that happens is people fill out the form, you look at it, and you know, if there's something that's really crazy or just junk, you throw it out. But then you assign it to, like, you look at it, is it a ticket, is it a criminal charge? So you sort of sort it out, and you're like the air traffic controller, or like you say, okay, you take this, you take this. Is that how it works?
That's how it works. We have clients with many matters. Some are criminal, some are civil, such as closure orders, and some are tickets.
So a closure order, that would be for a business.
For businesses, that's
and
right.
A ticket, that's what most of them are.
Most of them are tickets or summons, and that's where the fines come from.
And then a few of them are more serious criminal matters.
That's right.
How many, out of 1,834 cases, how many are those most serious criminal matters?
So those are 16.
16.
And they're spread out across Canada, and I'm actually very excited about them because we just hired a senior counsel, Mohammed Al-Rashidi, who has retained clients and will represent them in court.
So he can represent them anywhere in the country?
Anywhere, yeah.
And that's something that in the olden days you couldn't practice everywhere in the country, but now the law societies have agreements with each other that they can practice a certain amount of days in different provinces.
That's right, except for Yukon and Northwest Territories. Those are the exceptions.
Now we have some cases up in the far north, like just a few, and we're doing our best to cover those.
We do. We have a lawyer, Leighton Gray.
Oh, we know Leighton.
Yeah,
he's
great. Amazing, and he is senior counsel, and not only is he senior counsel, he is Queen's counsel.
Oh, he's a QC, that's pretty fancy.
Yeah, that's a very prestigious designation. So we're working on having him become a member of the Yukon and Northwest Territories
just to take these cases
so he can take those cases.
Got it. So all the provinces a lawyer can work in different provinces, but in those northern territories you have to apply.
You have to be a member of the bar.
And so Leighton Gray, who's based in Alberta, if I'm not mistaken, he's applying so that he can represent our northern cases. Mohammed Al-Rashidi, some people may know him from his CBC work. He used to appear on CBC, so he's telegenic. He's taking the criminal cases. Right. Tell us about some of the other interesting lawyers. I think some of our viewers are familiar with Chad Williamson in Calgary. He's a little bit of a cowboy.
Yes, he's just great. Just super innovative. He's a fighter, and just a pleasure working with him.
He's a hoot. We have a whole law firm in Quebec that helps people in English or French. And we set up a French language website, contesterlescontraventions.com, if I'm pronouncing it right. Terrible pronunciation. How are they doing? How many cases do we have in Quebec approximately?
They have over 200 cases, and the law firm is called Ticket Aid. Christina Mukari is taking care of most of our clients there. She's an excellent lawyer. I think they're doing well. That province is difficult. The prosecutors are very aggressive, and they're proceeding quickly. So she's got a lot.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad we've got a firm with some capacity. Like that firm is used to handling lots of clients, because normally they help with traffic cases. So they can do a lot of stuff. I'm glad we teamed up with them. What's interesting is that a lot of the cases, there's a religious Jewish community in Montreal, And for some reason, I would say some of it is just miscommunication, but I think some of it, there's a little bit of animosity from the police towards this community, because we have a friend there, Yankee Pollock, one of our staff, and they've been really weird toward him. They called him Jew media, and they've given Yankee a bunch of tickets. So we've had members of that community, and I actually did a video in Yiddish. I don't know if you remember that. So, but we help people en français. Like we help people who don't speak any English. We help every Canadian of every background.
That's right.
In fact, I see the names. There's a lot of new Canadians, a lot of minorities. We really are helping people from every walk of life.
That's right. I don't think it's a matter of color or religion or even left or right. It's a matter of civil liberties, and we don't discriminate. I onboard any client that has a ticket. So I don't even look at the merits of the case. We fight every case that comes across our way.
Yeah, and that's our style. It's not called pay the fines. It's not called settle the fines. It's called fight the fines. And I had a great chat with Mohammed al-Rashidi, and we may have some political differences, but we agreed we're both civil liberties people, and I felt really good about that. Leighton Gray, we know he loves civil liberties. He's helped with some important matters already. You just work with a lawyer representing our clients in New Brunswick.
Yes.
Because they've had a really brutal lockdown out there. Tell us about the lawyer in New Brunswick. I haven't met him yet, but you talked to him on the phone.
I did. His name is Nathan Gorham. He's a very experienced criminal lawyer, and he deals with very serious criminal offenses. So I think we're very lucky to have him join us.
And you were saying he's a professor also?
He is.
Well, I mean, these are some serious counsel. I mean, we have some youngsters too, and that's great. I like the young guys and gals. They fight really hard. Tell us about some, I mean, I'm not asking you to list them all. I'm just trying to keep track of them, but I think it helps tell the story of what we've created. And you've been the full-time, everyday, hands-on legal coordinator. You've really built this. I mean, we started with that one case of Arthur Pawlowski. I would never have guessed that we would be sitting here with 1,834 cases now.
I think when I started with this project in January, I think we had 100 or maybe 150 clients. And now we've had over 2,000 submissions, and we've taken up to 1,834 clients, and we still have more waiting in queue.
Now, every day I get these little emails, and I don't look at them closely because I know that you're taking care of them. So we still get, what, 5 or 10 a day?
Oh, more than that. That's a slow day. I don't think we've ever had less than 10, and some days up to 30. But I would say 15 to 20 new clients daily is regular.
So you take them, you work with our 2 paralegals. In fact, one of those paralegals, Jenna, has been on some of the Fight the Fines cases. I was looking, and we now have 166 little videos we've done. And that sounds like a staggering number, but that's not even 1 out of 10. Like if we have 1,834 cases and only 166 videos, for every case we're telling you about, we're fighting 10 or 11 that we haven't. Now, I don't think we've had a full trial.
We haven't had a trial, but our successes have been withdrawals.
So just to explain for the lay people who may not be familiar with civil procedure or even criminal procedure, some of these there's different kinds of offenses we're dealing with here. Just because a cop gives a ticket doesn't mean anything other than that cop gave the ticket.
That's right.
It then, in most cases, goes to a prosecutor who would look at it and say, I have a reasonable chance of conviction, and this is in the public interest. And if those tests aren't met, the prosecutor does not have to proceed. Is that right?
So we do try to settle this case and settle cases, and by settle we don't mean settle, we mean get a matter withdrawn. So this is the goal, and if this doesn't happen at early stages, then it proceeds to trial if the client chooses to proceed.
Got it. So for example, the very first case, again, the one that got this whole thing started, we took him on April 2020, Arthur Pawlowski, I think it was a $1,200 ticket for feeding the homeless outside. Just insane. The police called that an illegal gathering. They pushed Arthur's people around. Frankly, he should have sued them. That's just my own personal opinion. So he got these crazy tickets. The prosecutor looked at these, and this was a case, I think, that Sarah Miller.
Yeah, Sarah Miller.
So the prosecutor said, I'm just not prosecuting this.
Yeah, and we see that all the time. So I think it's a matter of fighting.
Sometimes you just show up with a lawyer and the other side said, oh, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, it could be. And there are also procedural irregularities and administrative errors that allow us to have these tickets withdrawn. So before anything proceeds to trial, we try hard to find a way to have the tickets withdrawn, and we have succeeded in many cases.
So I think you were telling me just before that we've had about 91 that are dealt with, and 50 were withdrawn by the Crown when they were just presented with an irregularity, or the case was just so ridiculous the cops should never have done that.
Yes.
Well, that's pretty good considering not a single trial. Now, I don't want to give away any legal strategy, and we're not. I haven't been briefed on any of the particular cases, and we have probably 10 lawyers.
Probably more.
Probably more than 10 lawyers. I mean, I've talked to a couple of them. You know, they seem to be good guys and gals. I don't think I'm giving anything away when I say that if our first tickets came aboard in April 2020, and it's now June 2021, time is passing. And one of the constitutional protections we have in the Charter of Rights, but it predates that. I mean, the right to a speedy trial, the right to a speedy trial, because as time passes, memories fade, evidence evanesces, and there's the stigma hanging over you. There's the stress hanging over you. You were charged with something, and it bothers you, and you think about it, and you're embarrassed by it, maybe, if someone else knows about it, and you're worried about it. So there's a lot of good moral reasons why, if the government says you've done something wrong, well, then come to court and prove it. And we're coming up on a year and a half now, and I know that in Canada, a year and a half is that point where the judges say, this is the government, pandemic or not, you had a chance to move on this and you just simply didn't.
Yes, and I think we are waiting to see how the courts are going to deal with this when they reopen. In a lot of jurisdictions, there is a backlog. And in some, they don't have enough resources to prosecute these cases. And that's one of the reasons why many tickets are getting withdrawn. So when courts reopen and matters come up for trial, it remains to be seen how they will deal with this matter of charter right to a trial within a reasonable time.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think, here's my theory, and I think this is absolutely true, at least in some cases, that police are over-ticketing, and politicians like that because they want to scare everybody into compliance. If someone is so scared that they pay their ticket, or so rich that they pay their ticket, well, that's just free money for the government. And I think that in certain jurisdictions, they're just going to wipe out en masse. Like, I have no insight. I'm not looking into my crystal ball, but if you have thousands and thousands of tickets that are constitutionally dubious, that were handed out just as some political war against people, it's probably served its purpose. And do you really want to take 100 prosecutors and 100 courtrooms and say, we're going to now litigate this at the cost of millions of dollars? I don't think, now some of the governments will, some are very punitive. I think Manitoba and New Brunswick are the most punitive, is that right? And you were saying Quebec's aggressive?
I think so, yes. Yes, it remains to be seen, but it is my personal hope that this will happen. And I guess we'll see. Yeah.
And again, I have no inside knowledge on any of these things, nor do I know the particular legal strategy of any of our cases. But I've observed that in the United Kingdom and Australia, tens of thousands of tickets were thrown out just because they were improper for some underlying reason. So that's a reason I would say to anyone out there who's got a ticket, do not pay it. Don't pay it. It's probably flawed. Even if it's not flawed, if the prosecution doesn't move, you may have the ticket thrown out for want of prosecution. And finally, you just might win. What's the downside? So go to fightthefines.com. We did some of these in the UK and Australia. We did a few dozen, but we've sort of wrapped things up in the UK because there's not a lot of fines anymore. They've really eased the lockdown. We still take a couple of cases in Australia, but again, same thing. They've really lifted the lockdown. It's crazy. Canada has the strictest lockdowns, I think, in the world right now.
I think so. So it seems.
Yeah. Well, I want to say that we had, besides you and the paralegals, including Jenna, who's on TV for us sometimes, That was an important thing to have that in-house.
Oh yes, they're just wonderful. They're in-house. They're very senior paralegals, and they're doing amazing work. Only yesterday I was on the phone with Jenna, and she advised she got 6 tickets withdrawn.
That's incredible.
She's proceeding aggressively, and she's just wonderful to deal with. And Caitlin is a very senior paralegal as well, and they're assisting us in Ontario.
I've had the pleasure of talking with both of those women, and they are very sharp, very clever. In fact, when I first met Jenna, she was so, she had such a comprehensive knowledge. I assumed she was a lawyer because she has, I think, probably more actual working experience with the laws than most lawyers.
Yes, and she has developed strategies for dealing with these tickets en masse going forward.
Yeah. She's a true believer also.
Yeah.
I've seen some of her videos. One of the things, besides having this in-house team that's made a difference, is the advent of the Democracy Fund. And that's a registered CRA-compliant charity, one of whose missions is supporting civil liberties litigation. And so for the last 2 months or so, any donations to the Fight the Fines project, they actually go directly to the Democracy Fund. They don't even touch Rebel News. They're just go straight over there. And the Democracy Fund pays the lawyers. So all the money, there's no overhead of the Democracy Fund, 100% goes to lawyers. But the benefit is our donors get the tax credit. So it depends on what province you're in, but if you give $100, maybe they only cost you $75 now, because you get $25 back at tax time. If you give $1,000, the amount you keep is even larger. I don't want to guess offhand the exact amount. It's slightly different for every province. But that has allowed people to give more than they normally would. And what I say to folks is, look, it's a tax time. Would you rather give an extra $200 to Justin Trudeau or have that money go to fight the fines? I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. That said, if we have 1,834 cases, and we're getting 10 new ones a day, and you say it's even more sometimes. Now, we've had 91 dealt with. So let's say we've got, I think you were telling me we have 1,743 cases that are still going on.
That's right.
1,743. But every day we're getting
more people.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like some provinces, they're actually getting more brutal.
Yeah, and the number of this will proceed to trial. There is no question about it. And
yeah, like all the criminal ones are going to trial.
The criminal and the tickets also. And I think that's the great thing about having this Democracy Fund. It eased the burden. I feel like we are really the official opposition in this country right now, and the government has almost unlimited resources. And what we have is the generosity of our donors.
Yeah.
And we have to be sure that we can pay our lawyers, and we don't want to stop. We want to keep taking on more clients.
I feel like we've already done a few important things. We've signaled to the world that not everyone's going along with this. We've given help to nearly 2,000 people. We've got 91 folks out of this mess completely. We've shown prosecutors that they're going to be up against serious people, not just our paralegals, but Leighton Gray, QC, this new professor lawyer in New Brunswick, probably one of the top lawyers in New Brunswick. So we're showing the government it's not going to be a cakewalk for them. And I think we've given psychological stress relief to every one of these families.
Yes, and it's not just a matter of legal assistance. I think it's a matter of moral assistance. I speak to people on the phone. I email with them, and I see how stressed they are. And I think just the fact that they're not alone helps them to go through this process, because I'd say for the majority of these people, they've never had any contact with the justice system. Like some of them probably never even got a parking ticket. So they're very stressed. They don't know what's going on. And I guess I'm glad we're here to support them.
Yeah, I mean, that's on your part, that's a heavy burden for you to relieve their stress. But on the other hand, what a pleasure in a way to say, hey guys, it's going to be okay. We got a lawyer for you and you don't have to pay. So on the one hand, I wouldn't want your job because you're dealing with tough people, probably even some people crying.
No, I haven't had
you
that.
Haven't been crying?
No,
Okay.
actually I did,
Okay.
yeah, once.
I mean, I'm not making fun. I'm just saying I know there's stress out there.
It's very stressful.
So I mean, I'm not built for that. But on the other hand, for you to be able to say we've got Leighton Gray, we've got Chad Williamson, we've got ticket aid. We've got like that to be the person who say it's going to be okay. But like you said so wisely earlier, it's our viewers who did this. One of the things you and I talk about every few weeks is the money.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to make promises to clients that we can't keep, and lawyers, they demand to be paid. And I don't believe in pro bono lawyers. We've had this conversation before. I think that you want an expert, and if there's some real estate lawyer, I'm sure he's very nice, but if he says, I'll work pro bono, well, you don't know criminal law. You're not an expert in these things. Thank you so much for offering to help, but we actually need a pro. Like Mohammed Al-Rashidi, he's a criminal law pro. We want that. Chad Williamson, that he's a born litigator. So I believe in paying for lawyers. I know people are probably saying, oh, well, you're spending too much. Well, we are spending money. But I have a motto, there's nothing more expensive than a cheap lawyer. And if you have a lawyer that doesn't know what they're doing, it's a placebo. You're going to get in trouble. So our discussions and what I've observed and the people we brought aboard, these are serious lawyers who are going to win, or if they can't win, it's because the facts are impossible, the law is impossible. We are not sending in second raters.
No, they're all senior criminal counsel. They know what they're doing, and they're all extremely hardworking and dedicated people. So we don't stop because it's a Saturday or a Sunday or it's an evening. We're working around the clock. And in addition to this criminal lawyers in Ontario, for example, we have a team of extremely professional civil lawyers, which is Amanda Armstrong and Nirmala Armstrong, who have actually recently succeeded on a number of closure orders against businesses.
So they've saved businesses from lockdowns. And you and I have been talking about a very special lawsuit they might start on behalf, and we won't announce it now, we'll wait till everything's ready, a very special lawsuit on behalf of a class of people who we think have been discriminated against under the lockdowns. So I was looking at the very creative ideas from that's a mother-daughter team, right?
That's right.
That's pretty cool.
And Jenna Little is the one that came up with the idea together with the client. We have some really amazing clients.
Yeah, they're turning into fighters, aren't they?
They're just great. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, and that's what I mean, to meet those people. I mean, some of the people who are getting these tickets are just regular folks who stepped over a line. Some of them are just sort of intransigent rabble-rousers. I would be under that category. So our own staff, some of them got tickets. But some of them are just great people who are in extraordinary times, and they decided to show some courage and push back. And we have met some wonderful people from different walks of life. I mean, a year and a half ago, your typical Rebel News viewer, typical Rebel News fan was probably different than today. I think we've very much become a helper of the working class. I mean, when I think of who's been punished in the lockdown, I think waiters, waitresses, hairstylists, barbers, restaurateurs, like really working people. I'm not talking about fancy people. Well, like I said, we like people of all backgrounds, but who has been hurt? And I feel like, I mean, we are a business and the Democracy Fund's a charity, but I believe that what we're doing here is filling an important social vacuum left by the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, which has been absent without leave, left by opposition parties who are meek, who's helping people. And I feel like the Fight the Fines, I think, I mean, I love our friends at the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. John Carpe, what a good guy. He's one of our favorite people. But I think with 1,834 cases, I think we are Canada's largest civil liberties organization.
I think without a question.
I mean, who could be bigger than that?
Yeah, this is a project of astounding scale.
Yeah, well, listen, so much of the credit goes to you, and I thank you for that hard work. Let me close by saying what you and I talked about just the other day. I said, how much money are we on the hook for?
Yes.
I mean, don't say the number out loud. But when you've got, well, if you add it all up, 15 or 20 lawyers at least, right? Like Ticket Aid has several, and all these are law firms, as you say. Let's say we got 20 lawyers. Some of these cases might only cost $1,000 to dispatch. Some of them are going to cost 10 grand. You got 1,834 clients and you're getting 10 more every day. You're coming up on 2,000 pretty soon. Even if you can resolve them for $1,000 each, well, that's $2 million.
And this is not taking into consideration constitutional challenges, which we do plan to launch.
Yeah. So here's what I said to you, and here's what I said at a staff meeting the other day. I said, my job as president of Rebel is to make sure the company lives and everyone here, we can make payroll and stuff. So I will never go so far down this road that we jeopardize Rebel News. It would be irresponsible to do that. But it's also my job to get the dough. Mm-hmm. So how do we do that? I mean, I've made my own contribution to the Democracy Fund. As a point of pride, I was one of the very first donors. Someone beat me to it, but I was one of the very first. But I do not want to stop just because we hit some arbitrary number of 2,000. Mm-hmm. If more people need help, the idea of turning someone away is very unpleasant to me. Mm-hmm. So what I've promised the world, I guess, is that I will keep on asking people to go to fightthefines.com and chip in as long as we have the need. And the metaphor I use is like we're a lifeboat. We started by bringing one guy into the lifeboat, mm-hmm. Arthur Pavlovsky. Then another guy. Then another. Mm-hmm. Now there's 1,834 people in the lifeboat. It's like a cruise ship.
And more waiting.
Yeah. So as long as the lifeboat is strong enough, we'll keep bringing them more, but I don't want to sink the lifeboat. Mm-hmm. If we get beyond our means, that would be, in the metaphor, sinking the lifeboat. So I never want to sail away from anyone, and say, sorry, no room in the lifeboat. That would be very hard on my heart. So I don't want to do that. So the only other option is to keep raising money, because for the foreseeable future, there will be more tickets. I don't see an end to tickets coming till the end of the year, at least.
Yeah, we're in for the long haul.
Because some of these cases, by the way, are going to keep on going for trial in 2022.
Yeah, so even once our clients stop getting tickets, the court matters are going to proceed.
Yeah.
So it will take a long time to resolve.
Well, listen, I'm very proud of this. I think this is one of the best things we've ever done at Rebel News. It's certainly the biggest thing we've ever done. To say that there's a $2 million liability here, I think is fair. We don't know, because we don't know how far and how hard. I mean, if all these were dropped tomorrow, we'd be done. That's not going to happen. Can we get some provinces to drop them? Can we expect, some of them to be timed out? Yes, we can. How much? I don't know. How aggressive are the prosecutors going to be? We don't know. Some of the provinces, they're going to be very aggressive to make a point. So, if all this came due, and if we owed $2 million today, we don't have that, but we have time. And we raise money every day at fightthefines.com. And I say again, and I think this is important to note, not $1 from fightthefines.com goes to Rebel News. It all goes to the Democracy Fund, and there's no overhead there. It's just 100% paid. And I think we push back on lawyers and we negotiate with them, and I think we're attentive to keeping the price down.
I think so. And we've negotiated bulk fees with lawyers to make sure that they're compensated properly while this project still makes sense financially. And
I'll say it, in one case, we took a lawyer to an assessment because we thought the bills were too high. And I say that only to say that we are treating the money very carefully. Even though it's not our money, we want it to be spent on this real project. So anyhow, that's the big update. Victoria, it's great to sit down with you, and thank you for all your anecdotes and your survey of the project. It's a huge project. I'm very proud of you and our paralegals. I think you're doing a great job. I think the job is not done.
Oh, no.
In fact, in some ways, it's just getting started. These are just all onboarded. We may have 1,000 trials in the future. And if so, we're going to rely on our viewers, because I do not want to put a full sign, a no vacancy sign, on the lifeboat. I want, as long as possible, to take more cases. Last word to you. Before we came on today, we were talking about if you had any tips for viewers about how to apply for Fight the Fines. There are a few things you think that maybe if there's someone who, if you had some advice for people who need help, what would your advice be?
Yeah. So first, if you intend to fight your fine, I would encourage you to contest it within the deadline set out on the ticket, and the instructions for launching those disputes are on the ticket as well. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources to dispute these tickets for clients in first instance. So once you get court dates, our lawyers will take over, but we need the clients to dispute the fines to make sure that the deadlines are not missed.
And that's the easiest thing to do. You just sort of write in and said, I dispute, like you mark an X and you sign it.
So either you call the court or you fill out a form on a website provided on the ticket.
Right. And then from there, we take over. So it's that very first thing, and that's actually the easiest thing. So it's not, it sounds complicated, but it's just X, I will fight this. And just because we may not be able to move quickly enough, because you have only a certain period of time, right?
And it's very important. It's sort of like hurry up and then wait. So it's very important not to miss those initial deadlines. But once you dispute a fine, it may take 6 months to a year to even get a court date,
so,
if at all.
And in the meantime, the stress is on us. Okay, so that's one piece of advice. Do you have any other advice?
Yes, so that's one. Secondly, we communicate with our clients mainly by email. And we've been finding that a lot of those emails go in people's junk folder or spam folder, and then they panic because they feel that they haven't heard back from a lawyer. So it's very important for clients to check their phone and check their email, all folders, and to be in constant communication with us so that we could keep you informed and receive instructions. Also, I find that a number of clients sign our form, sign up online by filling out our form multiple times. And I understand why they do this. I'm sure they're stressed and they feel that they haven't heard from us quickly enough. But unfortunately, it creates an administrative backlog on our end, which we need to clear. So if you fill out an application, we will have it. And there is no need to sign up multiple times because it just adds to the work on our side.
Yeah, I bet that people are stressed as
Yeah, which I completely understand that.
Well, listen, those are good practical tips for folks who need help, but just the instructions are there at fightthefines.com, and you and I talked about maybe one little tweak we'll make to things to make it a little easier to understand. The purpose of this video, Victoria, is twofold. Number one, to give people a report, to tell them the magnitude of the work that has been done. Because I think it's surprising even to me. When you said 1,834, I was sort of shocked. Because the last real update I had from you, we were at 1,200.
Yeah, I think we got so busy that I got just boggled down in sending clients to lawyers and resolving matters and fighting fires that when we did the count, it was surprising that we were almost at 2,000 people.
That's crazy. So the first purpose of today's video is to give people as much of an update as we can without getting into individual cases. The second thing is for me to tell folks, I love this and we're okay financially for this. And by we, it's a pot of money at the Democracy Fund. It's not Rebel News money. I will, at a certain point, put up the no vacancy sign on this project. I just will, because we don't, using the lifeboat metaphor, I'm not going to sink the whole lifeboat to take one more person on. But I want that day to be as far into the future as possible. So I am asking our viewers, if they love this project, if they think it's important on a micro level to save an individual family, or a macro level to help save the country, frankly, please go to fightthefines.com. You will get a charity receipt. You can make a $10,000 donation, $10,000 if that's your ability, and you'll get a very large tax credit for that. I'm just saying that because I hope someone's considering that. You've seen the quality of Victoria. We've described the quality of many of our lawyers. You've seen them in the 166 Fight the Fines videos we've made so far. I think we're making a difference. And as long as you're there, you are the source of the funds and the resources and the energy that we're helping 1,800 plus people. So please keep it up. And when, I guess, Victoria, when people say, all right, that's enough, then we'll say that's enough. But we won't quit 1 second before they do.
No, I'm here for the long run.
Right on. Well, Victoria, great work. Thank you. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, folks. A full show on our fightthefines.com project. One of the proudest things I think we've ever done at Rebel News. Victoria's great, isn't she? And she's built this whole team, really built a national law firm in a few months. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.